Hello everyone, welcome back. It's been more than 2 years actually. Today I'm going to talk about a topic that is not programming but very close to a programmer's heart, and that is dark mode. Light mode attracts bugs, that's why programmers don't use light mode. Alright, I stole that joke from the internet, don't arrest me. Jokes aside, let me tell you a bit of an introduction of the discovery of dark mode from my perspective. I used to program in Java back 4 years ago, and I started to realize that my eyes kind of hurt. I used to use Eclipse at that time in light mode, alright? Not because I think there's a dark mode version. I used the light mode version. I didn't even know there's a dark mode version. Then for some reason I flipped to IntelliJ. And IntelliJ by default is dark mode. I could have flipped it to light mode, but I said, why not try it out? And what I realized is that it kind of looks cooler, and that problem that I had with my eyes, that was this pain that I started to feel in my eyes while programming, that kind of went away. From then on, I flipped everything I could to dark mode. I won't try to convince anyone to flip to dark mode. Psychopaths will still use light mode, so why bother? So I will focus this video solely on Windows. I'm going to leave out Android, Mac, it's going to be just Windows. And mostly Windows 11 in particular because it's the newest operating system as of this date. So when was dark mode introduced? Well, it was introduced according to Google and according to my memory in around 2016 with a big update called the anniversary update. Because back then, Windows 10 was the last version, was supposed to be at least the last version, then that didn't last long. But anyways, they used to make these huge updates. One of them was this anniversary update, and indeed it included a dark mode option in the settings. And if you flip the dark mode, it's dark mode, it's dark, the settings app is dark. Then you go to open paint and it's not dark mode. You go to open notepad, and neither notepad is dark mode. You go to open file explorer, oh my god, one of the most basic things, and it's light mode. So what was that even? What attempt was that? Anyways, after that there was another Windows 10 update, and at least they made file explorer dark. But then you go on the run app and other stuff, and it's still light mode. Now the good thing is in Windows 11 they solved everything. Everything is dark mode. Let us take a look at this awesome operating system. So let us take a look at this amazing operating system. We open Notepad. Oh, look at that! Made it dark mode. Let's open Paint. Oh my god, this is dark mode too. File Explorer. It's dark mode too, and with the Mica effect. That's so cool! Calculator? It's dark mode too! Let me run WinVer. Run? Oh my god! The run dialog is not an isolated case. For example, the WinVer dialog, which we were going to run, is also in light mode. And if you go into some advanced settings in control panel or in the settings app as well, some take you to the control panel, those are still in light mode. So the problem isn't really solved. And some apps that you download, for example, spoiler alert, Resource Hacker, which we'll open later, that is also in light mode. You'll see what Resource Hacker is later. I have this theory that operating systems such as Windows XP and older than that support a much better dark mode. Not a nicer dark mode, but a more consistent one. Let's see if what I'm saying is utter rubbish. Welcome to Windows XP, the amazing operating system released in 2001, which is now a haven for malware and viruses. At least if you are connected to the internet, that is. So does Windows XP have dark mode? Well, spoiler alert, it does not have, out of the box at least. So if we go to properties and see, there's no theme that is dark. If we go to appearance, we can choose the color scheme, but there's still no dark theme. And if you go to the olive and the silver, you can see that it's still in light mode. Nothing changed. However, we have an advanced section. And in this advanced section, we can change every element's color. So I have the 3D objects, we can make them black. And as you can see, those are black now. We have the window, we can make that black too. Now obviously the text is also black, so you don't see anything. But we can also change the text, make it white. Same here. So I'm going to play around a little with this, change all the elements, and theoretically we should have a dark mode. I'll try it and I'll come back. Hi, welcome back. As you can see, it's a disaster. I played around with the values, I changed all the elements, I swear, but still, a lot of things kept white, like the buttons and the toolbar, this tab item thing. So, why is that? So on Windows 98, 95, those old versions of Windows, including 2000 and Me, which are the last versions before Windows XP, those operating systems used a sort of graphics renderer to render the stuff. So there's even some 3D effects. It's pretty cool, but it's a bit limited, or at least a bit hard to get some more detail. You need to make some algorithms that are able to render these fancy features like the Windows XP style. If you take a close look to the Windows XP style, there's a lot of detail to every button and every element. So what did Microsoft do? They created a new file called the MS Styles file, and in this file they store an array of images. All these images are used around the operating system. There's the tabs, the buttons. In fact, that's why those images didn't change, because to change the image you have to either colorize the image or change the image. And of course, by changing the element colors from the color settings that used to work in Windows 98 will not work in Windows XP. Welcome to Resource Hacker. Resource Hacker is a great program. It allows you to view and edit resources in files such as executables and DLLs. In this case, we have the luna.msstyles file, extracted straight from the Windows XP virtual machine. If we take a look in the file, there is a lot going on here. The two most important folders, though, are the text file and the bitmap. I'm showing you the text file because this defines the colors that we managed to change when attempting to make the Luna theme dark. That's why half of it was dark, because half of it is indeed defined here, and defined in the same way it used to be defined in previous operating systems. However, the other half is different. It's made of images, as we were saying, and here you can see the blue button, the blue caption button. What's cool is we can replace these bitmaps or save them, so we can both extract them or edit them. And that way you can make your own style. You need a theme patcher or UX style so that Windows allows you to use custom styles. And once you have that, you can make any style you want. Now you might have noticed there's blue, Homestead and Metallic. Homestead and Metallic are basically olive and silver, but they're called Homestead and Metallic. Inside the images, there's also Homestead images. So as you can see, each color is defined with images. So they don't use any form of colorization. That means they had to create all the images for every color. And that is probably why there are just 3 colors. That's a theory at least. However, I have a trick up my sleeve. Anyone remember the classic theme? So this is the Luna theme. This is the classic style. And if you've used Windows 95 to Windows Me, you know that this is pretty similar, if not completely equivalent. I mean, this is the same color scheme used in Windows Me. Windows 98 used the Windows Classic color scheme. The point though is that this theme doesn't use any images, as I was saying before, because this is before Windows XP. And I can change the elements of every color here as well. But this time, there are no images, so theoretically every element can have a different color. So I'm going to play around with it and try again, basically with this classic theme instead, and see if we manage to get a good dark mode. Welcome back. And look at this, my friends. It doesn't look as cool again as the Windows 11 theme, but every element, basically, is in dark mode. This doesn't count. Paint is, of course, still a white canvas that has nothing to do with the theme. But as you can see, pretty much everything else is in dark mode. The icons look the same, which is the same in Windows 11 as well, so it doesn't apply, but everything is in dark mode now. Some apps like Windows Media Player don't, because they're special with the skins and whatnot, But as you can see, even Notepad, from back then, we've been stuck with a white Notepad for such a long time. Now we did go to a dark mode dark mode Notepad, but it took ages to get there, and they had to revamp the entire program. When back then, look, it just works out of the box when you obviously change the settings. Control panel. We still have a white control panel. Again, the settings are in dark mode because they revamped them, but they still have the control panel there. So you have to stay switching between control panels, and one of them is in light mode, even if the system is set to dark mode. You remember how I said that Windows 98, Windows 2000 used the same theme as the Windows XP Classic theme, basically? So we could make them dark, theoretically, no? Let's try that out. I have a Windows 98 virtual machine, and we'll try that out. We'll see if it works. Welcome to Windows 98. Alright, enough of the introductions. Windows 98 had the classic theme by default, and it's basically the only theme you have. But, as you can see, you can also change the colors of every element. So I can go the active window border and many other things. So I went around, played around a little to get a dark mode. And guess what? So I saved it as Windows Classic Dark. And guess what? Apply, look at that, dark mode. And we can try run, it's dark. We can try I don't know, computer. And we can find a computer. I didn't know that even existed, but hey. And we can do, what else can we do? Come on, control panel. Oh, okay, so not everything can be done. Not everything is dark mode. This is using an image, as you can see here. It's a bit more advanced. You can choose the view to not be a web page, but then you lose some functionality. But yeah, so it's not fully supported. However, it's pretty darn good. Like, look at this. Like, most of the stuff that is usually light in Windows 11 is now dark. This is still light, but even, for example, the time, it's dark. It's not like a new concept where they just changed the UI and it always supported it. Like, this is the most basic Windows UI there was. The more basic than this was the Windows 95 that didn't support gradients, and Windows 3.1 that also didn't support gradients and was completely different. Fun fact, things haven't changed a lot since Windows XP. There's still an MS Styles file, and it still has an array of images. Let's take a look at Windows 11 MS Styles file. So, welcome back to Resource Hacker. This is the aero.msstyles file, which is basically the Windows 11 style. Because, well, knowing Microsoft, they recycled the name from Windows Vista, which introduced AeroGlass. This is not AeroGlass. This is the Windows 11 style, but with the recycled name Aero. Anyways, the structure of the file is different. However, there's one thing that's the same, this image folder. It was called bitmaps in Windows XP. Now they changed it to image because the images inside of here are PNGs, which makes sense. PNGs takes less space without losing any information. It's called a lossless image compression, so it makes sense for Microsoft to flip to PNG. Another thing they did, I think also to reduce the size, is to name the images with simple numbers. They didn't use names like long names, blue caption, stuff like that we saw in the Luna MS Styles file, because, well, it takes up more space. Especially if you know how to program, you can understand this pretty well. Now, as you can see here, this is an example. You have the checkboxes. There are the checkboxes in different sizes for different DPIs. And you should find other stuff. For example, 5 to 6 is the actual buttons. Now, we've seen these, you might have noticed these in other parts of Windows. You see the button. The Windows 11 button is pretty basic, and it's just a white square with a gray outline, and the square has rounded corners. So pretty basic, but this is the button in its different states. There's the radio buttons. And of course, these are all in light mode, and considering that most of the places you go, there are still places that are light mode, I would expect to be no dark mode version. What the f? Oh my god. This is so messed up. Along the way, Microsoft created many kinds of apps, WPF, UWP, WinUI3, doesn't matter. Windows 11 still supports all these kinds of apps. And the most basic that we've been seeing so many times is Win32. Win32 has been used since Windows XP. And Microsoft wanted to support them. Now, as we know, in Windows XP, you could change all the styles. And that's what they did in Windows 11. Even from Windows 10 to Windows 11, they changed the styles of Win32 apps. As you've seen, those images aren't the same as the ones in Windows XP, obviously, but neither the ones in Windows 10. So they went through the effort to make new images for the Win32 applications. However, they didn't make them the same as they are in the WinUI 3. So that's strike one. That is one of the things that really pisses me off. Why didn't they make the Win32 applications have the same style as WinUI 3 applications? At least it would seem more seamless. Now they made it obvious, hey, this is Win32 and it's light mode. And then that's strike two. They made the light mode version. They made the light mode version and they used it everywhere. The only place they used the dark mode version, which they went through the effort to create, they use it in File Explorer. So they made the dark mode version, but use it only in File Explorer, open file dialogs, save file dialogs, and folder dialogs. Why? Why only there? Why is it only used there? Why are they different? Even the dark style of File Explorer, it does not match. Alright, let's put File Explorer to the side. The open file dialog. The open file dialog has a dark style completely different from WinUI 3. I understand that you can't make everything exactly the same. I mean, you can't add the Mika effect to Win32 applications. And if you could, which actually I think you could, it's a big deal. But they didn't even try. Like, obviously. Like, I could make a better job probably myself. And in fact, I'm really tempted to get a theme patcher and make the style myself, edit this MS styles file. Jesus. God help them because they don't know what they're doing. So I made this overly dramatic to be funny and more entertaining. In reality, this is not the end of the world, and there are much more worrying things happening on in the world. But I just find it frustrating because when I look at, for example, the Luna.ms styles file, each button has so much detail, like so much effort, graphic designers putting so much effort. Then you see the Windows 11 ones and they're like literally a square with an outline. Like even when I was a toddler I could do that. So that's the part that frustrates me. In Windows XP they went through the whole effort to change all the UI with all the details, and now it's kind of like, meh, we'll just leave some Windows Vista stuff, some Windows 10 stuff, some Windows 8 stuff. That's the part that frustrates me. There are three last things that I would like to mention. First of all, Windows Vista and Windows 7 both supported the classic theme. So theoretically, in Windows Vista and 7, you could make a dark theme like I did in Windows XP. However, item number 2. I tried it on Windows 7 and it worked, but the control panel, if I'm not mistaken, still kept light mode, and the Excel spreadsheets came dark as well. So if I had a white spreadsheet, it would come like a dark gray spreadsheet. It doesn't make any sense. Like, why? Why change the spreadsheet color according to the theme? It doesn't make any sense. Now, in the new Word of Microsoft, you can make it dark as well, so while you're typing, it's not that straining on your eyes, but that's another thing, and you can still flip it to white. In fact, that's what I did because it just doesn't make sense to write white text on a black paper. If it's paper, it's paper. Alright, apart from that, the third thing is high contrast themes. High contrast themes have a dark mode, but they're different and they're not that as appealing as the actual dark mode. So I didn't count them as a dark mode version in Windows 11, 10 and 8. Because of course they all support it because it's an important feature. And it's supported everywhere. Everywhere you go, you have a proper dark theme. And in fact there's an Aerolite theme, I believe, and that is the dark theme. So with that, I think that's it. Thanks for watching, and maybe I won't upload in 2 years, maybe I'll upload earlier. Who knows? We'll see. Thanks for watching and goodbye. Cheers.